We're going to do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's start in a round. Start over there with you. Go around the room and say your name.
Rick Miller, English County. Jim Vanderborg, English County.
Ivy Bry, Wells County.
Jeff Eslinger, Association of Counties.
Paul Roller, Foster County.
Haley Rockmere, Foster County. Gina Caroline, McIntosh County.
James Gill, McIntosh County. John Wall, Levy County. Dan Maxwell, Wells County.
I'm Dan Sipling, Wells County Auditor.
Miller, Wells County. Brian Lautt, Wells County.
Becky, can you call us those two motions, please?
Here. Is there any additions to the agenda?
Talking about spurs on state roads and township roads.
Have that. What is it, Brian?
Spurge control on the state highways and township roads and farm to market roads. I got a call on that the other day. Just kind of curious.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda then?
So moved.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Any further?
Who made the motion over there?
Alex Jones. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Has everybody looked at the minutes of the last 6 county meeting? If they have, I would accept the motion to approve them. Second for the.
Second.
Any more discussion on the March minutes? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We will have treasurer's report.
Lunch, I don't know if you can shed any light on that or.
That there was the mural paid for, or the Legion rent, and Ashley was paid for, and then, Jody ran out of check blanks, so she paid Gina directly and then reimbursed herself when she got back to the office, so. 12/16/82 is the payment as of today.
I accepted a motion to the treasurer's report.
I'll second it. Gina.
Any more discussion on the treasurer's report? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. Is there any unfinished business? If no unfinished business, I retain a motion for that. You don't have to do a motion if there isn't. Okay. Now it brings it up to our speaker of the day, Jeff Eslinger.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The smoke is just as bad when we go down the further south. I was hoping I'd get a little maybe further further east and get out of it, but boy, it's really something. But thanks for having me. I brought a couple of things. I got a couple extra directories if anybody needs them. I have some more in the car. I have some handouts, and I think that they had 2 bags. It was in the other bag, so I just have to go across the street again to grab them. But if you'd like them, there's a list of about 200 of the major bills that we covered. We actually followed about 400 bills through the legislative session, and it just shows, you know, what the bill was and what the position of the association was and what the outcome was. I think you are pretty familiar with the big one, and that's also an opportunity for me to remind you that next Monday on the 16th, we're having a training in, well, it's going to be in Bismarck, but it's also going to be available online. And if you can't make either of those two, it'll be available as a recording, and it's to go over all of the things you're going to need to know, hopefully all, of the things that we're going to need to know to do the budgeting for the next year with these caps on us. So that was something we fought awfully hard, but I think from the very beginning, the legislators were all kind of like, nah, we cannot go home without putting some kind of caps on you guys. And so we did our best to you know, to fight it, or at least to get exemptions to it, and had moderate success with that. But we kind of knew going into it that this session in particular, it was going to be a give and take. They were going to give us the relief, but they're going to take some control, and that's just the way it turned out. So sadly, I guess we'll have to find out, and maybe when the pinch comes eventually, the legislators will be able to come back into town. Unfortunately, it takes 2 years before they can, and fix some problems if there are. That's the way legislation is in North Dakota. So if you don't get it right, you can fix it, but it takes 2 years at the minimum. So, but anyway, there's our team followed a lot of bills, and if you visited our website or if you were on the blog and subscribed to that, you'd get an email about once a week explaining, you know, what the progress was on that. I think this was probably one of the most strange and difficult sessions I've been here almost 20 years, and it was, I mean, we literally had people dying during the thing. We had, I think, a death and a stroke and resignation at the end of it due to alleged sexual harassment, and it's just weird. That's just weird all around. So, so that's on the legislative side. But if you haven't yet, for the 16th on Monday, if you haven't yet signed up for it, just go to our website, NDACO.org. We did a little bit of a change this year on it to make it a little more, we think, friendlier. Not so many drop-down menus, but right across the middle, there's a big green band that says "Click here to register for that event," and so it's easy to find. And then on the day of, if you were going to watch online, just go to that same page, and there'll be a link at the top of the page. You should also get an email that has the link in it, but we know that sometimes when you send an email, we are actually close to 600 people registered right now, because there's the schools and the townships and parks and just all the subdivisions. And when you send an email that big, a lot of times the spam filters don't like that. It looks like spam. And I think that happens especially when they're like, when you register, our system automatically generates a confirmation, and that has a certain look to it that apparently the filters don't like. So sometimes you don't get the confirmation. So that's the safe route, is just go to that page. There should be a link there. Click on it. It should be a live, I believe it's a YouTube live event is how they're handling it. And the only thing, and I know they'll say this at the beginning of it too, but the only thing I don't like about that is that if something happens and it fails, or just a little hiccup in the Wi-Fi or something like that, you won't be able to use the same login or link to get to it again. So if it blacks out on you, go back to that page and just wait for a while and refresh, and eventually I'll be there and I'll put the new link up. So I really don't like that. That was that was not good news when I heard about it. But the likelihood of something going wrong is pretty darn low. So we've got a fellow that's doing it, that's done a lot of these events. So So I guess that was my first order of business, and then looking a lot further into the future, we've got our annual conference in October. It's going to be the last week of October this year, 26, 7, and 8. So if you've got a favorite hotel in Bismarck, go ahead and make the reservations and ask for the state rate. We used to go through a lot of gyrations where we had room blocks at like several different hotels, and what we found out is that we were just getting the state rate anyway. So now we're just like, nah, I can't imagine how much staff time, it wasn't my job to do, but they have to call every hotel on their deadline and let them know who, not just that 17 rooms or 100 rooms or whatever, but actually who is in each room. And that was a nightmare. So just make your own reservations, and you may have seen in the news, there's talk again of building a hotel across the street from that event center. And if you've ever gone to conferences in other cities, there's always a hotel attached usually to the conference center, and here's Bismarck, the capital of the state, and the closest hotel is 5 blocks away. It's just embarrassing that our city hasn't done a better job. So there's some hope that maybe in the future that'll happen. Related to that, how many of you attended the Commissioners Summit about a year ago? That was in the non-legislative year. It went over really well. I think folks really liked it, and Joan Hollicomb, who is the president of the NDCCA Commissioners Association, would like to do it again. The first date that they came up with was actually December 9th. And we have some concern, that's only 6 weeks after our conference, is that I would appreciate maybe some nods or shakes of the head. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in having a commissioner summit right after the NDACO annual conference? Would that be a problem? I mean, it is totally different content because it's all about commissioners. I'm getting asked, that would be okay maybe? No, okay, good to know. We just weren't sure if there would be resistance to coming right back to it. And it's December, you get, I even have concerns about October when you get that late into October like we are, and plus some weather. But we deal with that in North Dakota. We can't control the weather. So those are the main things I wanted to bring up. We've got a really busy summer. I think we've got 5 of these tours. We've got a group, Aaron and Danelle, and the presidents are up in Pembina County today, and Cavalier in that northeast section. And especially after a legislative session like this, you kind of get exhausted of some of those topics, but it's really important to hear what people have to say about how it's affecting them or how they expect it to. And they've always got a lot of questions for us too as to what we know what's coming. So, out over there. Can y'all hear me? So that's about my main things. Like I said, I'll run out and grab those handouts if you want them to just read. It's a good reference just to review how the bills went. I'm already working on the conference, probably more than half of my time already. It's a big operation to pull off. One thing we've had a little bit lower than usual response on this year is the topics for the workshops. We have 12 different workshops during the conference, and we had a lot of great input last year that's still relevant, and we'll go back to that list. But I've had just a handful of comments, and they've all been really great ideas. I know AI is one of the things. There's like the two sides, like how can we use it, and how can it help us, but also what are the dangers? And so we're going to try to have something on that topic. And as you may know, if you've been there, we always try to pull in experts from whether state government or the private sector, whatever. So if you know of somebody that you think is really on top of a topic, and if you've seen a presentation on something, I'd love to hear about it, because we're going to have a meeting next week where we start making those plans, because we got to pin those speakers down early so we don't lose them. The theme of the conference, it's kind of hard to believe. Like I said, I've been with the association. It'll be 20 years next year, and we've never had a county fair theme, which is just bizarre to me. It's like, how do we never think of that? What's related to counties more than a county fair? So we're going to have a good old county fair atmosphere for you. You'll be hopefully smelling corn dogs and mini donuts and things like that. in the Bismarck Event Center. So, and then I brought some of the little giveaways and tchotchkes from the past couple of conferences. We always have some leftovers, so you can pick those up and basketballs are over the top of your trash can. So, good things. I see that we're also first on the agenda, so I know we'll have to make a transition from me just blabbing away to addressing that specifically. Yeah.
On this training, you said we can do it online if we can't watch that day. We can get something sent to us.
Yep.
Can we do that on past ones too?
On past ones? Yeah, anything that's been done by ILG from us is recorded and held in a library. And Alicia Adel, if you just email Alicia, she'll set you up with whichever one you want. I actually overheard a great conversation. It was at a commission meeting where somebody was kind of challenged that they had not been taking advantage of their training opportunities. And one of the commissioners said, you know what? Especially in the winter months, he said, my typical Saturday morning is I just open up the library, pick one, and sit there with a cup of coffee and take in the training. And he said he does it every week. So that was great to hear that those recordings are getting used. I have a tendency to over-answer questions, so.
So just a comment about the AI. AI is probably going to be a huge thing for the state of North Dakota in the near future. You may want to talk to Seth Altendorf, I believe is his last name, at DCN, about doing a presentation on AI. Because DCN, they're looking at doing a big network through the state of North Dakota just for purposes of AI. Out in the Williston area, they're looking at ways of getting rid of natural gas. And one of the things that comes up is power generation plants and then feed these huge data centers that do AI. So it's really will have a big impact on North Dakota as it goes through. And Seth has done a lot of research on that. I can give you more contact.
Yeah, please do. Please do. What was his last name?
Altendorf.
Actually, we've been in conversations with them about a few things lately. I've heard the DCN. I drive by it quite often on the big, beautiful campus. But it's come up in conversations a few times, so we may actually have some folks who know him. And I know also at ITV they're trying to address that. So thanks, that's a great recommendation.
Should we start with new business now?
Well, I want to just piggyback on that, just because, just to remind you, you would have gotten an email from Michelle Fabric about the North Dakota Commissioners Association, that they're doing nominations. If you're interested in serving on that board, the last time, what you know, was like July 29th. And their standing committees, they do too. So if you're interested in any of their standing committees, that's your Commissioners Association. So just pay attention to that email you would have gotten the other day.
Yes, thank you for that reminder, because I did bring a copy of the form. I only brought one just as an example, because I know you all got it in your emails. I hope you did anyway. Thanks, Becky.
Is there any other questions for Jeff before we move on to new business? If none, we can move on to business now. Concerned with NDACO membership.
Well, this past legislative session, I feel we should have been informed more of the hearings we weren't. As commissioners, people weren't notified of a lot of things that really concerned us. There was House Bill 1258, Senate Bill 2208. I can't remember the exact, I think it was 1106 or 1109. But anyhow, back last year when Major 4 was on the ballot, we got a lot of emails about that from the Association of Counties to be aware of it and so forth, and over against it for sure. But when it comes to legislative session, we just heard crickets, there was nothing, no email sent out about anything, there was some we should get that out there as commissioners to represent ourselves. With Dustin Everwell, I don't know who else gets emails from him, but he gave us a lot of information, what was coming down the pike. Things to watch out for, to get up there to testify. If it wasn't for him, a couple of us would not have been able to testify, for not knowing what was going on. House Bill 1258, the association, they stood with that. And Senate Bill 2208, they stood with that one. And that goes against the century code of commissioners with local control. 1133 says that we have control over citing projects and keeping our public safe. And there was another one where we were going to get our insurance pulled if we didn't go with what the legislature said on projects for the PSC. So I'm wondering where do we stand? Are they working for us or against us? Are they working for the legislature or are they working for the people that pay the wages?
Yeah, I guess as far as the communication, we have the legislative blog, and that's something not only can you just go to it at any time, and we promoted it quite heavily, that once you've been to where the blog is, there's a subscription you can check, and you'll get an email every time there's anything new on the blog. And then they also had a bill tracking set up that we publicized as well for that you could use to follow the bills that we're following, and I know those were among them. There's the NDCCA has a legislative committee, and they meet and vote. And we take orders from them. So if there's, and I know every session there's some bills that are easy, everybody's in favor of it, especially if it involves, getting money for roads and things like that. But there's also other ones that, the counties are split either down the middle or, 60-40, whatever the way it comes out. And that legislative committee is kind of the ones that holds the keys to what we do. We take orders from them. So I would say definitely it'd be a good opportunity for you if you wanted to volunteer to be on that committee. And I know the commissioners also had every Friday, they had a phone call that anybody could call into and listen in on.
We didn't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, we in the leader letter that we send out every month, we would always we had that in there that those things are happening. The NDCCA Friday call, I guess I don't know as much about whether or how they publicize that, but I thought, and we'll try to do better. I can definitely say that. It's disappointing to hear that you were in the dark.
But
feel bad about that.
why would the NDACO be for pooling our insurance if we were against a project?
Holding your insurance?
There was a bill, yeah.
And we were, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, I'm just saying, Aaron Hurst was the one that presented it to the committee up there, legislature.
Is anybody else familiar with that one?
That is our legislative commissioners. Get anybody else to step up. So, there was also Danielle put out every week what hearings were going to be every day, and then sometimes they'd switch them on us. They decided they're not gonna meet at this time, they meet at a different time. And sometimes that causes some conflict because you think you're gonna be at this time and then something else, but. And it's important to contact your legislature, even with an email or a text message, keep it simple. But they wanna hear from you, how you feel about a certain bill. But again, sometimes the bills are maybe not what you would want for your area, or I think some issues came up with that carbon solutions, which is huge for the oil field counties. You know, so you might have been against that, but, you know, for overall, for the counties overall, it was probably more important to support that. But I'm not sure what you're talking about, the bundling of insurance or pooling insurance.
I can't remember if it was 1109, I believe, I want to say, but Aaron first, we introduced that. What would you say? To help, or to pool on insurance if we, with claimants kind of with the fighting against the pipeline, and that was one of the tools. If we kept fighting, they would have pulled our insurance.
It had something to do with the, PSC.
Right.
Yeah, that, now I'm getting a little better flavor of that, and I know it was a legislator out west who used to be a county commissioner. And I heard him argue, just in a conversation, came to, can't remember what event it was, but, you know, he said, these guys, meaning, you know, out not in the oil county, he says they got their hands open all the time for oil money, but then when something happens here that affect, you know, they don't care that we got pipelines crisscrossing all over our counties, but a pipeline comes through there that benefits the oil companies, then all of a sudden they're like, no, well, they want our money, then they got to take that too. So I know that was the attitude.
We do have a pipeline coming for the oil.
Yeah.
We're all for it. We're all for oil.
Yeah.
But this carbon pipeline's a different concept.
Yeah. I mean, on a personal level, it's coming just north of me too, and I'm not real thrilled about that. It's not close enough to me to where I would feel that I'm in imminent danger, but I do know, you know, Bismarck's not going to expand north as freely if that thing is something.
Right.
So, but as far as what Aaron testified on that, I guess I don't know.
Well, I guess he introduced the amendments to this.
He could support it. We don't have the power to introduce any amendments or legislation, but he may have helped write something.
Right.
He may have been involved. Yeah, I'd have to just ask him about that.
Are you kind of ready to move on here then? I mean, you got, answer good enough then. Ditch cleaning with, Foster and McIntosh County.
You go first.
Okay. I guess I passed this form around. It's a North Dakota DOT form. I didn't have enough copies, but there's a number up of that. SFN 50909. You go on the NDACO website, you can ask for the request for rating form. It'll come up and you can print it out. The background on this, our county approached a couple months ago, pertaining to some right of way on county highway, the South Heritage. It happened that a couple permits had been approved for subsurface drainage, tile drainage, a mile or so upstream, and they felt that the culvert in the ditch on the side of our county highway needed to have a bigger one. And our road superintendent actually put the eye in, ran water through it, determined that they thought it was blocked or whatever. There was plenty of flow in that. Well, then an individual said, well, the problem is you need to clean out the bottom of the ditch because it's holding back water. And our board did not act on it except to get a quote. It was going to be about a $3,000 estimate to have a contractor take this hump out of this ditch for a few hundred feet. We tabled it for one reason. It's too wet to go look at anything. So we wanted to think about if that's county responsibility. And also, one good point was what kind of precedent we would be setting if we were to agree to pay for that. That worked out. We've got to open up a big categories. So, we just tabled it until, I think, our next meeting. So it's coming up next week. In the meantime, we're also working on an ordinance and things about it. Something to get in place at Aaron's recommendation that we have a general ordinance that states no utility can intrude on a county road or county right of way without approval. So we're working on that and a whole bunch of other permits for building. And you gotta think, well, how about these highway ditches? And you've probably seen it all over for individuals, maybe, not necessarily utility, they'll have a smooth, they'll just cut into the highway ditch on the state highway. Like, I think they must have a policy for that or something. They have way more policies than we do. I asked our road engineer about it, and he said, yeah, go online and get this form. And basically, it puts the onus on the individual, the way I look at it. In wetland, we use approval by board of the water district. So you will take that responsibility as a county. And if you approve the work, it's done by the people requesting it and they pay for it, and it has to meet the specs. And that's what we're thinking we should develop, is something like that. My personal feeling is, if these roads were built 30, 40 years ago, the ditch did its job as far as the highway was concerned. Since that time, weather patterns have changed, drainage practices have changed, and now the tile drainage. I don't feel it's the county's responsibility to make those changes in the ditch to accommodate that. Now, that's my personal feeling. Our board hasn't even had that discussion. But this, if you want to do that, this could be a pattern on that. When I first asked to get this on the agenda, we just wanted to see what the other counties, how they looked at that practice.
Are you talking all county roads, township roads, and state right? Are you doing these in the right of ways? Or are you doing it in the road right of ways? Or there's so many different rules for all this. In a county road, I mean, the county's responsible for those. The township road, the township is responsible, I think. And the state, I mean, what do you want? What are you looking at for this?
Well, my thought was just to look to see what the state does. If we could use this as a template to develop a policy, ordinance, whatever it takes, just for county roads and county right of way. If the townships want to do something that, that's their road. So, I'm just, there are a lot of people though that think that the county board has authority over the townships. You would not believe how many people think that. But they are the road authority on their
Township's their own authority.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So all we can deal with is our roads and our right of ways. And, but we don't have anything. It seems like the best policy is something you put in place before something happens. When you don't know the individuals, it's no preference.
No, I
know. In this case, we've got a decision we will have to make. And you can have variances if you have policy. So, I guess we're still exploring it, but we wanted to see what other counties were doing.
Is there somebody from McIntosh?
Okay, McIntosh County's issue is with the township, an organized township. And, okay, you guys pretty much said the commissioners don't have authority to allow anything to be done in the ditches in the township. Does the water board?
Yes. Water board.
The water board can approve drainage in the ditch.
In the ditch right away?
In the ditch right away.
Would it be the water board and the township would have to agree though?
if it's in the right of way. Well, this particular, I've only read this once, so it's no expert, but I take it to mean that before, as part of this application process, water board has to approve. But I think what it's
draining
trying to
wetland, and there it said if it's draining wetland, then there has to be, yes, has to be involved, there is fish and wildlife or whatever else, if it's gonna take water off of wetland.
Yes.
Not just hold it.
And I think that would be important because if a county board would approve something without those steps, then I have to pay that some liability. So, I just thought it'd be good to see what the state does. And I'm sure, I don't know how long they have this policy. They've got 2 pages of information that explains it better than that.
I think that some of that has to do with if there's an assessed drain, if there's a recognized drain, I think the water board might have a little more jurisdiction, but if it's not an assessed drain, I think the township still got the power. I'm not sure, but the water board does have power in assessed drains, am I right? But if it's not an assessed drain, that's where knowing that which direction it is would be very helpful. So that, so go ahead.
I would encourage you, if you have not, to get a hold of the manual, of the water board, and read what it says in there. They have absolute authority. You would not believe the authority of the water board has. The water,
I understand that, I'm just trying to.
they have authority over any type of water movement. We've got the book, it's that thing. But I mean, because we have a drainage thing out there, we're kind of arguing with the water board on, my God, when you look at what they have for authority, it's incredible.
Or if you're not dealing with a challenge with them, you soon will be.
Pardon?
I said, if you're not dealing with a challenge with your local water board, you soon will be.
Oh, yeah.
We've got some circumstances going on in Wells County right now that are really a challenge for the commissioners, and because you don't always know what their authority is, and we just had a case they lost in court, and they're gonna appeal that, of course, and who knows what will happen there, but this is a challenge. So I think the commissioners are asked to be authorities on this, and there's no way you can possibly be that if you're not lawyers. So
It's good if you take the time to read that, because it's at times you really get frustrated, and yet it says in there, the people who wrote the rules, they just give them the authority. I like this drainage that Dave's talking about, like to preface that a little bit. This drain happens to be one that was, a farmer went in and cut a road ditch. This was years ago, and he cut it really deep. And so the farmer commission chair had the county go in and fill that drain. Okay. Therefore, the county now has some responsibility there. We can't say, as far as I'm concerned, we can't say, no, we're not gonna do this. But you can use it as a preference, saying, well, this is a spot where the county was involved, and, we probably have a responsibility in this instance.
if there's a rain event that washes crop residue into a culvert, fills that up and stops it back, who's responsible for removing that crop residue, the county or the landowner?
There again, it all falls into assessed drainage, because that's what this lawsuit in Wells County was about. The judge ruled against the water board. I don't know why, but there's argument whether it was assessed drain or not. That's where the argument came from. And so all I'm saying is just because certain rules say what they do, if somebody pushes the issue, it's gonna be a judge's decision, whatever that is. And I mean, that's where we're at. So in your case, yeah, who would be responsible? Good question.
That's gonna change the elevation of the lane there. That becomes soft. It's an act of God.
Right.
In our state ditches, I know I've seen that plenty where corn washing, corn still where it washes in. I don't know if that's really ever been removed. Well, but it did definitely build up over the years and changed everything. In our situation, here we have the farmer decided it's the only township that we have that's organized. He decided he needs to clean this ditch out. Well, he went to the NRCS and went to Big Game and Fish or whoever does the wetlands. And they said that he could cut 6 inches off. Well, he took more than that off, and then he just left it in a pile on the inslope, or down the backslope, whatever. And then he didn't smooth anything out. He didn't clean it up. Well, the township has a big fight with it, and they came to us. And the farmer came to us, and the township came to us, and nobody knows. But it is a township road, so they pretty much have authority here. So it's something that they have to get worked out, but it's not water board is involved.
And where does the liability, like in an organized township? Say if somebody takes four-wheeler, drives it into that, whatever this guy did, tips over, dies, is the county liable or is the township liable?
Township is liable for anything in the township right away. If there's a tree growing there, somebody runs it and gets it, township's liable. You know? I'm sorry, but our county's got all kinds of trees in the township. My township does.
So the county, where you have organized township and county, do the organized township, does the county have some roads going through those townships also? That's always the case.
I mean, there's county roads and township roads?
Right,
Yeah. Our county has a lot of that.
And look at the county does. Right, I mean, I'm new to the whole game, but in McIntosh, we only have one township. And there's not any true farm to market roads through that. The only one that would be a true farm to market road, I guess, would be the one border.
When you're talking assessed drain, that is a whole legal thing. So, I mean, it should be very clear whether you have an assessed drain or not, because they just put one in Foster County, which affects anybody who benefits from that drain has to pay the maintenance on that drain.
See, what's starting to happen now, with a lot of guys with scrapers, outside of this assessed drain, they're taking a pipe that should have 5 gallons a minute, they're trying to stick 50 gallons a minute. And the same with the township deal, it's kind of a catch-22 because the township's responsible for accidents, okay? Now, let's say there was a water event, and the water board was in charge of it, and they didn't do their due diligence, and somebody got killed, like she said, then whose responsibility is it? So, I mean, there's a lot of things that just hang, that really make you wonder who's who and what's what. But you will see when that happens, they're gonna argue about whose responsibility more than who's concerned about what happened. That's what I notice.
And my thought is they're gonna go after, in our situation, they'll go after the county because the county has more money than the township does. If the lawyer gets involved and something happens, so are they able to? Is it our responsibility to make sure this ditch is fixed up good now, or obviously it's not?
It's part of the site of a culvert, some of the running water. We had that in Boston County where the guy didn't have the water system done, they needed a big culvert. Right?
But they also did, we need to get back to one section. They rerouted what the state had done in the state highway out in Farmington. It was supposed to go when they built the running store, You're supposed to go back across this farmland. Well, then that water board decided, or people on that water board decided we were gonna reroute it along the ditch, along the road, and along the county road. And when they did it along the county road, when I drove by there, it's like this. And so we went out there, yeah, we went out there with our engineer, and that deal came out and moved it, except for that this one section, because he had a rock in. And he was supposed to go back and finish that, and I don't think that's been done. Yeah, so, and we made the water board pay for it because they were the ones that had done it. So, sometimes they're not, the water board itself is not doing what they should.
Well, has everybody got their questions? I mean, that they still want, to try to get better answers for some? Then you move on to the next.
I'll ask Tommy because I personally would like to see association with counties. I'm a water person.
I was actually just making some notes about, the NDPERS actually is who needs to have the water person. And I was just thinking that would be a great topic also to do this commissioner summit is parsing those liabilities out, between. Yeah, the half a step ahead of you, but just.
Well, but that's a good thing for the commissioner convention thing.
Yeah, really good thing.
That road will be full.
Yeah. And
Have security.
well, I mean, they got a vested interest in it because they're the ones that insure you guys for those things, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, moving on here, SB 2180, public comments at a meeting.
Our auditor, Linda, what the change was in the statute, they added the section. A meeting of a public entity must include an opportunity for an individual in attendance to provide public comment. A public comment, A, may not be subject to approval by the public entity, and B, only may be limited by time per speaker. So, my experience in county government prior, our board allowed at the very beginning of the meeting, if there's anybody there who wants to address the board, they were allowed 5 minutes to speak. Now, if you get a lot of people coming, then you want to limit that time, or your meeting's gonna run way over. But usually, we only had one person there, who's just wanting to bring an item up to the board's attention that they might not have been aware of. So, you might want to put that in your agenda, public comment. Unless anybody else has thought about this or has comments about it.
Becky, I have a question. I remember part of the issue was whether they could restrict it to items on your agenda, and I believe that they cannot, right?
Right.
So it could be public, anything goes.
I thought it was, it has to be something on the agenda or.
Yes, that's correct.
Doesn't say that.
Yeah, that's the way.
And they have to tell you what they're going to talk about. It's either on this agenda or your last
Previous
one.
Yes.
And that said, that all the auditors know I put this on the list here yesterday. When you're taking public comments, in our case, at a county commissioners meeting, you would assume that it's about county business. And to have a public interest in that, you probably should be from that county. We're going to talk about some other things here later in the meeting that seems to bring our neighbors from any county over here who want to control the conversation at meetings. And so that's the question I put out yesterday, and nobody responded to me in any clear fashion. One of you said, we're not going to do that in our county. But that's the question that I have.
they have to provide obviously their name and their address and so on and so forth. Not that their address would become public information, but I would want that just to know, do you actually reside in Wells County? Because to me, it doesn't mean that somebody isn't highly knowledgeable about some circumstances that you might invite to want to have to speak at your meeting. But if you're coming here to complain and you're not from Wells County, that makes me wonder why we would give you time.
The only thing I could see that you would is if they are a farm in the county, or they have interest in the county, they have some input.
But see, and I'll draw a parallel here, and I don't want to get off on a rant about elections, but to vote here, you have to live here. Doesn't matter whether you own land here or not. You have to live here to vote here. And I almost think this parallels that. And maybe we want to know what you think because you own land here, but still, if you don't live here, can you truly make a public comment that should necessarily sway decision-making or policy-making here in this county? Or should that be relegated to people who actually live here? And I'm just trying to answer that question in my own mind as we create policy here, because we don't have a lot of time. August is right around the corner, so I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think Aaron should maybe,
Yeah.
provide some background of what their intent was here.
Yeah, I don't
Because
recall
when
that
I read this, I
question
don't
coming
see where it says it's from this meeting or that meeting. You know, I don't see where it says that.
Yeah, that's why I asked it, because I know where this came from. If you want some really cheap entertainment, go to the City of Dickinson website and click on their city commission meetings. There's this guy that shows up, and I mean, you know who he is right away. He's like, oh, it's that guy. He's the one that's going to do this. And he talks about vaccines and flat earth, and I mean, just anything that comes to his mind, and he'll go on for 25, 30 minutes. And they're just sitting there helpless because they don't have a policy. So they're the ones who brought that up.
There's an old adage from my prior life as a school official, and that is this: the only thing that's worse than not having a policy on something is having one and not following it. So when you do get a policy, whatever it is, it could be about water issues for that matter, you better follow the one that you have.
You would set a policy of how long they can talk.
Yep.
They can't talk all day.
Yeah, I'm interested to know from the other auditors, as long as we're on this subject, what your thoughts are. And mine is 3 to 5 minutes with a maximum time frame, and I don't have any illusions that we're gonna have 25 people standing in line here. But the day could come when you have some issue that's so controversial that you could have a slew of people who address this issue. So what are you going to allow? And I'm working with a 15 to 30 minute time block, 3 to 5 minutes. And if there's one person, they can have the 5, and it only takes 5 minutes. And as a result of that, my thought is to put it at the end of the meeting. Because by then the commissioners are never paying attention anyway.
And did you happen to see, was it in the Crossroads Township? Right up on this that said it has to be the agenda for this meeting or the prior one?
Yeah, and
No, I interested, but maybe it was in the Crossroads.
all the auditors, I know you've received template for this policy, and everything has in it either the current agenda or the one just prior. So,
Now, is there a difference between persons making an appointment and then those appearing?
say that one more time.
Is there a difference between the persons that make an appointment at the meeting and then those,
Or to get on the agenda is what you say,
yeah.
before the meeting. And then they come to the meeting and they wanna talk, and you don't let them.
We love you.
We give them 15 minutes if they make a point.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
And then if we have a group of persons that come in, we ask for a spokesperson. Who the spokesperson is for this group? He alone speaks.
And under our policy, what I've constructed so far is you would not be able to give your time away, so to speak. So you can't have 4 people come in and say, that's 20 minutes worth of time, and I'm gonna give it all to the local loudspeaker. So, but yeah, if you're on our agenda, that's different than this.
We've had, people that come in at the beginning of the meeting, they'll just come and run the meeting, and the chairman will call them in right away. They speak their piece, they have a discussion, and they leave. That's the way it's worked in, well, the last meeting and the meeting before. We did have a large group that came in, and I gave them a half an hour, and then they let anybody in that group speak. And they did go over their half an hour, but it gets to be a long meetings then, if you don't have something.
In the like for a policy.
Some kind of policy. I think in here we need some kind of a policy because my meetings get really long. My commission meetings. They start at 10, sometimes they end up at 7 at night.
Yeah, the auditor's not even paying attention.
Oh, yeah, she is. She's paying attention, but then she's getting cranky.
Well, should we move on to the next one?
I can just mention from experience when Al and I were on school boards together a while back. We were on, went through two consolidations. And with those coming along, annexation of tents and all kinds of things, we developed that where we had 10 minutes early in the meeting. And that seemed to work. Because it was the same, otherwise it was the same thing every month, every meeting. But we also had some special informational meetings set aside just for that. Where we would get up and people made their comments and we would respond. And because when you have big groups and they all had, there was different opinions, that allowed for that, but it didn't disrupt your agenda for the rest of the meeting. And as a commission, we did that last year when we were proposing writing up a county highway. And we had a bunch of people came to our meeting, we talked about it, realized that it would take more time, we set up a special meeting. And that was the only topic. We still round up the road, but everybody had a chance to have a say, and we kept our regular agendas pretty clean. So in our case, that worked. And I think we can add a different thing wherever in the agenda. You brought up things I hadn't thought about. Work. But that's what worked for us.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? If not, we'll move on to the assistant to emergency manager.
How many counties have emergency managers, and do you have an assistant for that?
I'm the co-emergency manager.
You're
co-contact.
No assistant.
No
We don't have an assistant.
Okay. Our commission is looking at maybe getting our emergency manager a person to help out and for writing grants. And, I don't know if it's that, it kind of goes back into the next subject that we have, that's fire and ambulance department. They're looking at, getting a person to come in and write grants and maybe take training for some things in fire departments and have that person go out and train fire departments or trainings for ambulances and stuff like that. What I see with it, if that person say this person goes out, trains the fire department, something goes wrong with the fire department, or a person on the fire department, then they would come back liability wise. And they'd come back to the county by having this person. That's my thought. I don't know if I'm going down the wrong road on that, or what is, anybody else got any thoughts on that one?
What you're saying, you wanna